Well, the much-anticipated presidential debate took place Tuesday between former President Donald Trump and Vice President Kamala Harris. It was highly rated, drawing 67 million viewers across networks and other platforms. Harris went on offense early, seeming to rattle the former president.
And I'm going to actually do something really unusual, and I'm going to invite you to attend one of Donald Trump's rallies, because it's a really interesting thing to watch. You will see during the course of his rallies, he talks about fictional characters like Hannibal Lecter. He will talk about windmills cause cancer. And what you will also notice is that people start leaving his rallies early out of exhaustion and boredom.
She said people start leaving. People don't go to her rallies. There's no reason to go. And the people that do go, she's bussing them in and paying them to be there.
Trump did get more airtime than Harris, almost 43 minutes for him, more than 5 minutes less for her in the 80-minute debate. When it came to abortion, Trump made this false claim about killing infants.
Her vice presidential pick says abortion in the 9th month is absolutely fine. He also says execution after birth. It's execution, no longer abortion, because the baby is born, is okay. And that's not okay with me.
There is no state in this country where it is legal to kill a baby after it's born.
I absolutely support reinstating the protections of Roe v. Wade. And as you rightly mentioned, nowhere in America is a woman carrying a pregnancy to term and asking for an abortion. That is not happening. It's insulting to the women of America.
Trump later complained that the moderators were unfair, and he told Fox News that ABC, which sponsored the debate, should lose its license. Carmen, what did you think of the debate? What did you think of the moderators? How do you think it went?
I watched the debate. It was quite interesting. Even though Donald Trump got more airtime, I feel like I do believe it was 3 against 1. I feel like they allowed Kamala Harris to pivot a lot on talking points. They didn't hold her to task like they did Donald Trump. And I don't think they fact-checked her as well as they did Donald Trump and didn't call her to task on if she said something that was incorrect. They didn't make her go back and correct it like they did Donald Trump.
Were there times that Kamala Harris said something that you felt should be challenged factually? Did she say something that was unfactual?
Well, absolutely. Even in the debate against when President Biden was running, they both brought up the Charlottesville incidents, and we talked about this earlier, and we all know that has been debunked. We all know he didn't say that. That has been out there for 8 years now of him not saying that, and they didn't hold her to task on that one. And there were several others that they didn't hold her to task on that were clearly incorrect.
Eric, what did you make of the debate, and what did you make of the moderation?
Well, I felt there were things that happened with the moderators that both people who supported both candidates could challenge. They did challenge Donald Trump more, but they challenged Donald Trump when he said incredibly outrageous things that were obviously not true, saying that some Democrats wanted to advocate killing babies after they were born, and saying that Haitian immigrants were stealing and eating pets. That's a level of misinformation that, frankly, it would have been derelict for journalists to allow to enter the public discourse without commenting on it. They also, however, didn't enforce the rules for the debate, which said that they were going to cut off the mics of each candidate when the other one was speaking. So that's one of the reasons, I think, why Donald Trump had more speaking time. He kept interjecting when he wasn't supposed to, and they, in fact, they brought up his mic when he started talking. So the moderators chose their corrections very carefully, and they seemed to step in when Donald Trump said things that were so outrageous they couldn't possibly let them be said. Otherwise, they didn't. CNN did a fact check where they found that Donald Trump told misstatements and lies 33 times, compared to 1 that they could verify for Kamala Harris. So, to quibble about the corrections that they did deliver, I think, is to miss the point. The point is to keep, really extreme misinformation from becoming a part of the public record and a serious part of the debate, which is what I think they did. Otherwise, I thought they asked important and serious questions of both of them, and both candidates declined to directly answer questions that were directed at them about policy.
Well, let's look at another issue. Trump charged that the Biden-Harris administration had mishandled the influx of immigrants on the southern border.
There's never been anything done like this at all. They've destroyed the fabric of our country. Millions of people let in. And all over the world, crime is down all over the world except here.
Harris fired back, blaming Trump for blocking bipartisan border legislation.
That bill would have put more resources to allow us to prosecute transnational criminal organizations for trafficking in guns, drugs, and human beings. But you know what happened to that bill? Donald Trump got on the phone, called up some folks in Congress and said, kill the bill. And you know why? Because he'd prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem.
And speaking of immigrants, Trump stirred up a major controversy by claiming, without evidence, that immigrants were eating pets in Springfield, Ohio.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
I just want to clarify here. You bring up Springfield, Ohio, and ABC News did reach out to the city manager there. He told us there had been no credible reports of specific claims of pets being harmed, injured, or abused by individuals within the immigrant community.
And Tara, there was a bomb threat this week in Springfield. The head of the health center for the Haitians in Springfield, Ohio, says it's devastating for the Haitian community in Springfield, and it's created fear for our members who are scared for their lives and the lives of their kids, because the target of this pet eating allegation was the Haitian community, immigrant community in Springfield. What do you make of that?
Well, firstly, xenophobia and hate mongering in public space has no place in America, no place anywhere. And it's really curious to me that Donald Trump is not leaning into his Republican roots. A conservative icon, Ronald Reagan, in his last farewell address to America, did a love letter to immigrants saying, America's a beacon of hope and opportunity, and we need the renewal and refreshing that these immigrants bring to our economy. And so this kind of talk is just more division and actually bringing the Republican Party farther away from its roots. Certainly here in Florida, we have a strong Haitian community. Rick Scott came out and said how much he appreciates the Haitian community and the contributions they make to our economy and to our communities. And it just looks like more hate mongering, more divisiveness, and it's really pushing away voters from his message. The other thing I wanted to say is that it was a whole distraction from the real issue of border policy. Both Donald Trump and Kamala Harris didn't necessarily address the complete comprehensive border policy that we need to talk about. It's not just border security. It's what do we do with refugees? What do we do about visas? What are pathways to citizenship? Neither candidate addressed those issues, but certainly Donald Trump's rhetoric was not that of a conservative that we know in our history of American politics and Republicans. And that's one that America stands ready to embrace those that come to our country and want to contribute to civic life and community life.
Carmen, let me go back to you. How do you think both candidates handled the question about immigration?
I agree. I don't think that they really addressed it. I think that our border is a mess. I think that I do know after the debate, Byron Donalds did come out and he texted and tweeted or posted on X that there is a bill sitting on Chuck Schumer's desk that was passed in the Senate and it has not gone forward that would address some of the immigration problems and some of the border problems. So despite whether or not people think President Trump called the Congress and told him to kill a bill, there is a bill already that's been sitting on Chuck Schumer's desk for I think several months now that has not gone anywhere that he won't release. Mm-hmm. So I just think that is an issue where we have to come together. We can't, to me, in my opinion, and we can't keep being so polarized on so many issues. There has to be common sense solutions to some of these things because the only people hurting are people, right? When we can't come together from both sides and work on something that's common sense, it's only hurting the people that are out here every day trying to put food on the table and just living their lives as American citizens.
I do want to make one point, which is that if we do want to have a common sense discussion about immigration, how can we have it with a candidate who is willing to see misinformation on the internet? And something as outrageous as accusing our immigrant community of eating pets, and then mention it during the most important debate of the year. I don't understand why there isn't more attention directed towards saying, why did he mention this? Why did he bring this up? And how is this going to help us get to any kind of solution if we're at the point where we have to correct severe misinformation like that. That's our problem. We spend so much time trying to correct severe misinformation that should obviously be known to be untrue that we can't spend that time talking about the issues.
Haitian immigrants are here legally, but President Trump, or former President Trump, is saying he wants to deport anybody who's here illegally, somewhere between 11 and 20 million people.
I wish we had discussed that.
Yeah.
And there is no plan for that, and there is every bit of evidence that shows that would be devastating to the American economy.
Well, speaking of the economy, let's talk about that. Immigration is a big issue in the campaign and also here in Florida, where many undocumented immigrants work in construction and agriculture. And Florida has passed tough new laws to try to keep the immigrants out. The Kaiser Family Foundation estimates that more than a third of the state's agricultural workers, nearly a quarter of its construction workers, are not U.S. citizens. This includes both lawfully present and undocumented immigrants. Last week, CBS reporter Martha Teichner asked State Senator Blaise Ingoglia, a sponsor of a bill to crack down on illegal immigration in Florida, whether the law was hurting industry.
We are showing people that you can actually have the rule of law, crack down on illegal immigration, and still have a booming economy.
I understand the idea that at a state level, you're going to politically go ahead and send a message to Washington. In the meantime, crops are going to rot, crops won't be planted, farmers will suffer.
John S. Forms is CEO of Sunripe Certified Brands, a giant multi-state tomato operation his family started in 1920. His view is a lot gloomier.
Florida cannot continue to produce the food that it has historically produced with the labor that's available, either domestically or through the H-2A program. Before long, if we keep going down this path, there won't be a tomato, there won't be a bell pepper, there won't be a cucumber, a grapefruit, or an orange that's grown in the United States because it'll all be imported.
So Jacob, that guy and the American Farm Bureau Federation says American farms are being threatened because we haven't figured out how to get the workers that we need to work on our farms.
I spoke with a farmer in Plant City, Fidel Sanchez, and he spoke about how hard it's been for him, especially when strawberry season came, to be able to pick up all this crop, right? And the inability of him to be able to hire the hands needed to give work to people, not unlike himself, because of this expanded law, SB 1718, which I might add that the lawmakers behind said its intent and purpose was to demonize immigrants. I also think that it's worth noting that often this issue is brought up, but it's brought up specifically to, oh, well, how do we handle this issue of immigration so that we can benefit from it? And I think what needs to be also said is when you look at this law, right, SB 1718, when you look at what some politicians are saying, right, how does this impact the average person? I wrote a story last year about an undocumented woman who survived the Parkland shooting, who spent her entire life raised here, and who had to leave Florida because of SB 1718, right? And so I bring this up because people are listening, right, to the words that are spoken. People hear these things, and those who would like to exploit undocumented immigrants are going to continue to do so, and they'll feel more emboldened and empowered when we have this kind of discussion around the issue.
And President Trump says most of these people that are here illegally are criminals, and they're people that have been released from mental health asylums.
Well, I've spoken to experts, and what they found is that undocumented women of high school age are twice as likely as their citizen peers to fall victim to sexual violence. And that more often than not, right, that these women fall victim to that. And only 12,000 in the year 2018 actually went forward and reported it, because in the state of Florida in 2009, a woman was arrested for going to the cops.
Mm-hmm. There's no migrant crime wave. The FBI has said there is a dip in violent crime, and migrant crime is the same rate, if not lower, than domestic crime. So that's just more mistruths and misinformation. And the truth of the matter is 44% of our immigrant population is in agriculture, 25% is in STEM. And then the remaining is our entrepreneurs, growing small businesses in our country, which is the greatest portion of our economy that grows jobs. And so we really need to start looking at that as not only an economic engine, but through the lens of humanity. We are all from immigrant families.
Okay.
But I don't think, really quick, we can't ignore what's going on with some of the Venezuelan gangs. You look at what's happening in Colorado, and now it's happening in Texas, where they're going in and taking over apartment communities.
We had our own kids shoot up our own schools.
I know, but we're talking about immigration here, so there's some things we still can't ignore when you do have gangs from other countries coming in and starting to, I mean, we have enough of our own crime in our country that we need to be dealing with, so we can't ignore some of these stories as well.
The mayor of Aurora, Colorado says the stories about Venezuelans taking over apartment complexes is not true.
Again, our problem is misinformation. How can we actually come up with a policy that effectively targets problems when what we're talking about are myths or exaggerations?